Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you about a talent that's been, I guess, sort of emerging in a sense, sort of been discovered about a week or so ago for Demonology in Mythic Plus, and I guess just general AoE settings in the raid as well. That talent is going to be Shadow Invocation. Discovered a few things about it, the way it procs, how often it procs, how you can sort of cheese it in a sense, and why it might change Demon's rotation in AoE, talking 2-shard, 1-shard hand of Ghoul'dans in certain spots, depending where you're doing. Pretty interesting. So, honestly, with that being said, let's get right on into it. All right, so for the past few weeks, even like months, I'd say for the most part, the Demonology Mythic Plus build has typically looked something like this, where you have this 2-minute Naked Tyrant build. You're playing, Grimoire Felguard. You're playing the typical build, Imp Gang Boss. Hatred or Guillotine, depends what you're doing. I've played mostly Hatred, but Guillotine is more than fine on Fortified, and even Tyrannical, and certain keys in general. But one thing has changed over the past few weeks. I talked about it a little bit with Metro, and things have been changing even more and more over the past week and a half or so. There's been a bit of a shift towards not playing Imp Gang Boss. Some are playing it here, the 15th of January. If you look a little more recently, let's see, 19... here, let me see, there's 2 here, both still playing Imp Gang Boss, but there's been a shift recently in more recent keys to actually playing Shadow Invocation over Imp Gang Boss. Now, I played a mix of Shadow Invocation and Imp Gang Boss together separately, all that on PTR, and they both seemed really close. I think it more or less came down to how does it look in Sims when PCR ended, because, I mean, Sims, as long as they're implemented properly, they'll replicate scenarios relatively well. And for the most part, Imp Gang Boss came out on top a little bit in AoE. Now, Imp Gang Boss is also ahead when it comes to single target by a little bit. Actually, I have a sim here for you I can show. In single target, Imp Gang Boss is ahead by about 1,000 DPS, give or take, over Shadow Invocation. This is my own character, 5-minute sim, 1 boss target, all that. So about 1,000 DPS, not negligible. I mean, it's like, well, I guess depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, it's 0.5% roughly, but I mean, if it's better in AoE and better in single target, obviously, it's better. But the shift to Shadow Invocation has made things a little interesting. Shift, I said, to Shadow Invocation has made things a little interesting. And I wanted to sort of know why. And I was talking about it in chat a few days ago, streaming, and someone mentioned that Shadow Invocation procs a lot in AoE. And I wasn't really sure as to why. And I said, I wonder if there's a weird, interaction. I don't know if it's a bug or like a clause where it has a chance to proc more if you're how do I word this? If it has a chance to proc more based on the number of targets that Hand of Ghoul'dan actually cleaves. Because Hand of Ghoul'dan, the spell, cleaves when it lands. It's not just, only on 1 target. It has that Hand of Ghoul'dan splash damage effect, right? So what we're going to do here, I went to a single target dummy. It procced, I think, like 12 times over the course of 2.5 minutes, give or take. I put a turnip down next to it, and it was pretty interesting to see what happened. So I'm going to open up here in single target, and we're going to get like a general idea as to how Shadow Invocation actually procs and how it looks in single target, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to precast our Siphon. It's not going to be like a perfect opener, but it's close enough. It is what it is. We'll do like 1 Tyrant cycle. For the most part, it should be enough. No cleave here on anything besides this 1 target. We'll Tyrant, and this will be that. Now, like I said, that 1k DPS, it's not nothing when it comes to like single target in, a handful of settings, but it's not something that's like the sky is falling if you want to play Shadow Invocation over Implosion, or sorry, Imp Gang Boss. And like I said, I wish Imp Gang Boss was the way that it was back in the day, where you got imps refunded to you. The new version, while it is, I guess competitive in a sense, just feels really lackluster compared to what it used to be. Demo Mythic Plus, AoE wise, is strong. Obviously, the spec is strong, but I feel like general overall playability, I don't enjoy it as much as I used to in Mythic Plus. Demonic Strength Cleaves, Demonic Strength Cleave, Hand of Ghoul'dan, splash damage, Implosion, all that, a well-rounded profile. But in the end, I don't know. But at the same time, I always enjoyed playing Shadow Invocation on PTR, and I had noticed from pack to pack that at times it did a lot of damage, and at other times didn't do much at all. And it did vary a little bit based on the dungeon that I was in, how large the pulls were, how many mobs were in each pull, even the affixes, Fortified, Tyrannical, how long things lasted. And it sort of skewed things, I guess, in one direction a little bit. But this testing here, it sort of makes sense. So rough rotation here, we're looking at, they're sitting at about, you got to scroll down a little bit to find them here, but they're sitting at 0.7% in single target. We've had about 9 hits, not a crazy amount. I mean, yeah, the proc chance is not incredibly high in single target. We saw it in The Sims, not a crazy amount of our damage, but it's not nothing, right? I'm just going to stop here because it's close enough. It's proc 12 times now over the course of, basically a minute and a half, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull off of this. I'm going to drop a turnip next to this mob. Just to clarify, about a minute and a half-ish, give or take, it procced, once again, 12 total hits of Biosquare's Bombers, right? And just to clarify, we're playing Demonic Strength here. Bombers is proccing solo off of Shadow Invocation. So I'm going to drop a turnip next to this mob, essentially making it a 2-target cleave scenario here. And we're going to cast the same rotation. We're not going to implode, do anything else besides the normal ST rotation, basically, right? But I want you to keep an eye on the Bioscourge Bombers procs, and you'll see where it goes. So, okay, got to be outside to use this. We'll make it work. Let's go to Stormwind and do this. No big deal. All right, so we're in Stormwind. We're outside. I can put a turnip down now. To clarify, it's refresh once again. Bioscourge Bombers had 12 total hits over the course of roughly a minute and a half on that single target mob dummy in Valdrakken. I'm going to put a turnip next to this mob here, so we're going to have that 2-target cleave scenario, and we're going to open up once again. I'll even do one less core, because honestly, who cares? So we're going to open up Grimoire and the Dogs. Not an optimal opener here, or perfect rotation, but it's close enough. It is what it is. The main thing we're going to be looking at here is the procs of Bioscourge Bombers and how often they proc. And I guess you can look at overall like damage contribution as well, because it should be just about double what it was in pure single target, right? So cycle through a little bit here, cast our Dogs, gonna hand here, and once again, we're not imploding. You do want to implode in 2 or more stacked targets, but I'm not gonna be imploding here. I will come in for Baloros just to, like, pop it. Similar damage from last time. I'm not min-maxing brand here. I'm just hitting buttons, nothing crazy. I'm not even branding the turnip here. That's literally it, just hitting buttons and summoning demons, right? Pulling up the meter here. Bombers is sitting, where are we at here? 1.7%. It's already hit 14 times. We're about half a minute and a half in, well, about a minute into this, roughly, give or take, and it's hit 14 times. Keeping pace with about double the effects of a single target scenario here, right? Now it's Procatola, let me see here. Now it's hit, 24 times. Cast a hand. Did it hit again? It did not. Cast another hand. Cast a 1-shard hand. 2.3%. It's hit even more now. 32 times. I mean, RNG is RNG in the end, right? Multiple bombers will spawn, so it cleaves more often, right? It's not just one bomber. But either way, it's pretty strong at what it does in 2-target and 3-target and 4-target, and it has that scaling factor as well. We found out where it doesn't check on raw Hand of Gul'dan cast. It's not like, okay, if you cast Hand of Gul'dan here on 1 target, it has 1 chance of proccing. It seems to be internally, I sort of confirmed it, that when you cast Hand of Gul'dan, it will check 1 time per target hit. So 2 targets, essentially twice the amount of effects, if not more, what you get in a single target. 3 targets, 4 targets, so on and so forth. And that is the reason, from what we can see, as to why it is so strong when it comes to AoE. It does a lot more damage to AoE, 15%, 20% in these massive pulls in Everbloom, places like that. Bombers are sitting here at 2.1%. It had a total of 44 hits comparatively to last time, where it had 12, 14 hits, and it was 0.7% of damage. So RNG is RNG. But I've tested this multiple times, and the same thing happens every single time. Let's look at it in, I guess, 4 to 5 target AoE. All right, so when I said 4, I meant 5. It's 5 stacked dummies here in Valdrakken, but keep in mind, single target, 0.7 to 1%. Overall bombers, 2 target, 2.5%. We'll look at it in consistent, sustained 5 target, and like I said, it'll become pretty apparent as to how it is so high on certain pulls, Mythic Plus. And we'll look at Hand of Gul'dan shard counts as well for relevancy and damage. I'm not going to stack Doom Brands here a bunch. I'm just going to I'm not min-maxing here. We're looking at Bioscourge Bombers overall damage, right? We can spread it more, optimize more, but honestly, I just want to hit this thing and show you guys what it does. All right, so we're going to go into here. Siphon, sure, why not? We're going to open up, cast this. I'm going to spread a few brands. It depends. See how I feel. I don't know. Do this, cast a couple of hands. Hand. I'm just going to pot and Tyrant and cast my 9 Muse, whatever. No big deal. Put this over here. Cast Strength, do that. I will implode a little bit here because this is like mass AoE and all that, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, look at Bombers sitting there, 2.3. But watch how often Bombers procs when we get rolling here in like sustained AoE, right? So Bombers 2.2, here's a hand, procced again. 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 It procs basically every single Hand of Gul'dan in 5 or more stacked targets. It procced again. It procced again. It procced again. It procced again. Hardcasting a bolt. Apparently that's okay. It procced. No, it might have procced there. I don't know. I wasn't looking. Here, it procced again. It procs. Again, it procs the vast majority of the time whenever you cast Hand of Gul'dan in these higher AoE count settings, right? I mean, it already has 135 hits here, basically, right? It spawns 2 bombers. From what I understand, 2 bombers per. Yeah, 135, 145, and it's cleaving 5 mobs each, so that's 10 hits overall. And that's that. Now, the interesting thing here is that, okay, so let's say you have a 7 mob pull, 8 mob pull, 10 mob pull. You're pulling multiple packs of Mythic Plus. What does it look like mob count wise, where maybe a 2-shard Hand of Gul'dan or a 1-shard Hand of Gul'dan could become relevant? Summer in the Lock Discord, I DM'd him about it. We talked in the past handful of times about sims and things. Ran a lot of sims. Flashbang warning coming up. I'm sorry. It's bright. It is what it is. He ran a lot of sims looking at target counts. 1-minute sims, no lust, looking at 1 target to 15 targets. 5-minute sims, 1 to 15. All this stuff here. Here is this chart he made as well. I believe he's pinning it in Lock Discord. Might have done it already, I'm not really sure. Basically, so what he did here, 1 minute with no lust, 1-shard Hand of Gul'dan worth it? No. In 1 target, 2 target, 3 target. 4 targets, 1-shard Hand of Gul'dans and 2-shard Hand of Gul'dans, or a 0.4 and 0.5% gain over casting regular Hand of Gul'dans. When it comes to, I mean, we can even pull up the sims here and look at this, right? So let's say 3 targets here, basically normal rotation. No big deal. It's still a little better by a minuscule amount. 2 shards, no Tyrant. 2 shards with Tyrant. Both still a little worse. Go to 4 targets, though. It actually overtakes normal Hand of Gul'dan cast. Now, it's only 0.5%, about 2k DPS. You're doing 500,000 here in AoE, but there's some relevancy there, right? If you go to 6 targets, or 7 targets, or let's go to like 10 targets, right? It becomes a larger and larger gap. 9.8k, this is 6 targets versus 7. 17k, we're looking at 10 targets for a 1.5% gain, which is sitting right about here, you can see. 15 targets being a 2.2% gain, looking at about roughly 36,000 DPS. Now, 15 targets, you don't really encounter that a whole lot in Mythic Plus unless you're in like a larger, like making heavy pulls in a coordinated group, pulling multiple trash packs. Not really in lower to mid-tier Ts, you encounter that a whole lot. But in settings where you might be making those large pulls or pulling 3 packs together, or you're pulling trash onto a boss potentially, this is where this could become relevant, casting 1-shard hands or 2-shard hands. You can see even in 5 targets, it procs almost every Hand of Gul'dan. If you factor in 10 more targets, it's pretty much guaranteed to proc at every single Hand of Gul'dan cast, right? He ran sims on 1 minute no lust, 1 minute with lust, and 5 minutes with lust. The longer 5-minute sims, more drawn out. It sort of makes sense that they'd be a bit more neutral, give or take here. And plus, packs vary. Obviously, some are longer pulls, some are shorter. Maybe trash to pull onto a boss, whatever, what have you. But it's interesting to see that, you know, I mean, looking at these gains here, 1 minute, 15 targets with no lust, you're looking at about a 35k DPS gain. 5 minutes with lust as well, you're looking at a much lesser gain, but also doing, you know, similar damage, a bit less either way, right? It just sort of evens out in the long run. But overall, it's still interesting to see, and this is a 1 minute sim with lust as well. Still being better, but comparing 15 targets without lust, to clarify, this is no lust here. This is with lust, higher numbers. It is not as big of a raw gain percent-wise with lust factored in, doing the 2 shards and 1-shard hands comparatively to without lust factored in. So with no lust here, looking at about 2.2% for the biggest gain, 1 shards with Tyrant, no Tyrant, all that stuff here. Comparatively to with bloodlust factored in, 1 shard being about a 1.4% gain, more overall damage, but I mean, you know, gaining 28k being 1.4% comparatively to 2.2% without lust being 36,000. So is this like the end all be all? Should you change everything you're doing in Mythic Plus? No, because at the same time, you can see in the longer sims, things even out with dog extensions, tyrants, implosion cycles, all that kind of stuff, to where it's a overall like a much lesser gain, I'd say overall, but it's still interesting. If you're looking to min-max things a bit in Plus, this could be where you want to look, right? We've seen on large pulls, bombers being 15%, 20% overall in a individual pulls breakdown because of this being the case and how it interacts with Hand of Gul'dan splash damage and not just raw Hand of Gul'dan. So, to summarize it all, the talent's pretty good. I'm playing it in general over Imp Gang Boss. Like I said, even in single target, you lose 1,000 DPS. But even like overall, I can run the sim again. If I sim this in, let's just say, 8 targets for 40-ish seconds, comparatively to the single target sim, I might lose 1k DPS in patchwork settings, but I gain a decent bit when it comes to raw AoE. An 8 target pool, not that big when it comes to like higher coordinated keys, all this stuff. I don't know why I'm in the queue, but that's fine. I think the sim was roughly ahead by like, I think 30 or 40k roughly. We'll find that in a moment here. But that 1k disparity favoring Imp Gang Boss and single target compared to gaining more in raw AoE, 6, 7, 8 plus pulls. I will make that 1k DPS trade in single target for gaining, well, this much value right here, if the sim loads, in single target. Or sorry, in AoE. So I'll make that trade any day. In the end, whether I'm cycling 1 shard hands, 2 shard hands, or like just staying with 3 shard hands for the most part, I'm going to play Shadow Invocation over Imp Gang Boss at this point. And yeah, that is that. You should consider it too. So thanks for watching, guys. Wraps it up. Hopefully you guys are excited about Shadow Invocation. As excited about it, I guess, as I am. I think it's pretty cool, honestly. I have never really been a fan of the 1-point Imp Gang Boss. It just sort of, I mean, it's there. It does what it does. But it just felt sort of eh. The current Imp Gang Boss feels just subpar from what it used to be, which gave you imps back and everything else. Shadow Invocation is cool. We played both it and Imp Gang Boss on PTR for a while and thought it was decent, but sometimes it was good and other times it was bad. But now we sort of know as to why, because Hand Gul'dan splashing on multiple mobs gives you a higher chance to proc it. So those 1-2 shard hand sequences at times might be worthwhile. I think once again, it's likely worth it in like maybe a coordinated group, like when you're making, you're making large pulls, you can plan ahead around certain cooldowns and certain rotational sequences and stuff. But either way, it's cool to see. And yeah, hopefully you guys like the cool and unique interaction. Once again, thank you to Summer and Lock Discord for all the help with the Sims and everything. He did a tremendous amount of work, and that was awesome. And yeah, so like I said, any WeakAuras or add-ons, if you want them, links to Twitch and Discord down below are for free for you guys. And at the same time, like always, want to give a huge shout out to my patrons for the video. For all support on Patreon, guys, like always, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Now, we're going to have the 11.0 War Within What Is Wrong With AF video coming out probably in the next few days as well. This video was a pretty cool one. I wanted to slot it in between, the third video in the series we're making, but that should be out in a few days as well. And we'll go from there. At the same time, I mean, I've been playing a bit of demo this week in Mythic Plus, but it's a pretty miserable week with Afflicted and whatever else, Tyrannical and Bolstering. So I thought, next week's Fortified. Shadow Invocation a little more relevant there. Let's get it out and see where it goes. All that being said, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.